So to get started with the candidates for student organizations, please. Okay, Danny and Michael, welcome. Michael, you can start off with your opening statement.
Sweet. Good evening, everyone. I'm Michael Yang, a rising sophomore, and I'm running for VP for student organizations, as you've heard. But I have no experience at all in overseeing student groups. So why am I running for this position? I remember at the beginning of the year at BSG at-large rep interview, which I didn't make, I said how I'm excited to see so many things happening on campus. And to this, one of the interviewees said, you'd be surprised how little goes on campus. I don't think this is necessarily true, but echoing this, at the student meeting concerning the Coles Tower incident, I shared my hopes that the student groups would reach out more to the student body, more than through emails or posters. I believe that with certain inexperience like mine comes reckless enthusiasm. And so here's my recklessness. I wish to see Bowdoin with more students aware of groups on campus, and 2, groups doing more activities. The same things, you would say. To do this, I seek to install student organizations board in each dorm, which should have happened a long time ago, that has contacts and meeting times for different groups that will help students participate in that. And also, I plan to attend the meetings of different groups to learn more about them and ask them to reach out by reaching to them out first. So yeah, that's a lot of time commitment. But with such reckless enthusiasm to make those things happen, I ask you to vote tonight.
Thank you, Michael. Dani?
Hi, I'm Dani Chediak. I'm running for the same position. I agree with a lot of what my opposing candidate just said. I guess the way that I would deal with those issues is I definitely think that more needs to be happening on this campus. So how do I want to do that? I want to have online resources, an online handbook with online submissions, connecting students to the resources available on this campus. I've already started to do that this year, working on the SOC. The page should be going live as soon as IT gets back to me. Dealing with the fact that there is stuff going on campus and people aren't hearing about it. We have all these posters going out, we have all these class list emails going out. They're not organized in any way. So what do I want to do? I want to create an online calendar, a consolidated one where students can constantly know what's going on and respond to the fact that there are these posters in a logical, efficient, organized way. So hopefully not only will groups be having more events because they'll be able to access resources better, but students will be going to these events because they'll know about them. And last, I think experience helps a lot. I know about the resources on campus, I can help students get to them, and I can do that pretty efficiently. Yeah, so vote for me. I think that experience matters.
Okay, thank you, Dani. This first question will be directed at Dani first. Dani, what do you think are 3 important criteria for deciding whether or not to charter a club?
I think the first and most important thing is to make sure that there isn't another organization that serves a similar function. That's pretty obvious. We don't want groups to be doing the same thing. We'd much rather pair students that are interested in that type of thing with the groups that already exist on campus. Second, I really want to make sure that groups have students from different grades and aren't just a group of friends coming together to ask for SAFC funds to buy snacks. That's kind of important that the students that are coming together based off an interest, not based off of any desire to manipulate the resources that are available to student organizations. Last, I want to make sure that there's a faculty advisor. I know that seems kind of silly, but it's the way that student organizations continue from year to year. If there is a faculty advisor, it's more likely that a really cool event that happened 5 years ago might happen again 5 years later when students are interested in that exact same thing.
Thank you. Michael, same question.
I'm going to confidently say that I have no idea what the 3 criteria would be. I did not read a charter or the written handlines of BSG. I'm not yet part of SOC, nor am I the VP for student organizations, so I cannot provide clear 3 guidelines like that. But then over the summer, if I do get the position, I obviously will study them. And I obviously will study the regular responsibilities that I have. But I'm not gonna lie, I haven't studied those things. I haven't had experience in exactly SOC, although I had past leadership experiences. But I think Dani's answer doesn't need anything in addition to it, added to it.
So the difference between Charter 1 and Charter 2 organizations is that Charter 1 organizations receive funding. What are your thoughts on Charter 2 organizations that do not receive funding?
As I said, there's no past experience on my part in order to base off what are the Charter 1 groups as of now and Charter 2 groups as of now. But just from the intuition, which may be greatly wrong, as it might prove next year if I do get the position. But I think a lot of student groups can exist without the funding. With funding would require, it would require a reasonable argument on their part to ask for Charter 1 funding. But I don't think having no funding makes them any worse or any weaker or any less meaningful. That's my opinion on it.
I think Charter 2 should be used sparingly. I think it's very important that clubs have access to financial resources. You can't really do much without funding. But it is important to have Charter 2 because there are some organizations that at first don't need any funding. Okay? That at first don't need very much funding. And there are also organizations that you want to make sure that they're going to use funding responsibly. You're not exactly sure what they're going to be doing yet. They come in with somewhat of an unclear guideline, but a mission that you do want to support and you don't want to say no to that organization. So you give them Charter 2 so you can see them grow and see what action is happening, see what they're interested in, see what they're interested in spending the limited resources of the SAFC on, and then you go ahead and give them Charter 1 afterward.
Thank you. Last question. Despite not having a vote on the SAFC, the Vice President of Student Organizations does sit on the board. What do you think your role on the SAFC would be? Danny, this one's for you.
Well, I've sat on the SAFC before as a voting member, an at-large voting member, and that was a really cool experience, so I know how to deal with the SAFC pretty well. And I think that my role as, changed role of not being a voting member and being part of the SOC would allow me to be an advocate for student groups. So I would like to be sitting on the SAFC and basically just helping student groups navigate the process of the SAFC and advocating for them with the SAFC group, voting committee members. So if Frisbee came in and wanted a budget, I would have already talked to Frisbee and I would have already helped them through the budgeting process. And then once they sat there, when the SAFC was deliberating, I'd be sitting there to advocate for them.
The questions that were posed today, all the 3 questions, I think the answers to them is pretty standard if you do have the experience. So I don't particularly see what I can add to Dani's experience and excellent answer that I completely agree with. But I do think, put it into other words, I do think as student organizations VP, I would have to stand on student organizations side. If the SAFC is viewed as mean Scrooge who doesn't want to give away money, then I'm on the other side trying to help how to get money and how to ask for more useful money, and also trying to advise them into different ideas if some idea doesn't look adequate in order to gain more funding. So I would try to work as an advisor for the other side, supporting them to get funding from SAFC.
Thank you, Michael. All right, time for closing statements. Michael, you can start us off.
I would first want to thank everyone here. This is amazing. Obviously, my answers to the 3 questions weren't as good as Donnie's was. And as I said, inexperience on my part. I haven't been on this thing. I do want to say that I'm not coming baselessly. I was in student government for 7 years, from middle school to high school, 3 years of administrating Model United Nations and whatnot. So I do have leadership experience. I don't seem to have experience with student organizations, but nonetheless, I'm applying for this for the first reasons that I said. To have more students aware of groups on campus and to have groups doing more activities, and to do so, as I briefly mentioned in my opening statement, I would like to sit down to every single group's meeting, to different groups meeting, to learn about them, and to reach out to them first, to make them reach out to students consequently. And I want to do that by me reaching out, and that's my time. That's a lot of time commitment, but I'm a reckless freshman. So thank you for coming out, thank you for listening, and thank you, John, for counting.
Danny.
Basically, I'll just end this by saying why I want to run for this position. When I was looking at commitments for the future of my life here at Bowdoin, I thought that it was really important that student organizations had someone to come to that did have experience, that could help them navigate through the complicated SAFC process, through the chartering process, through any process that they're trying to go through, dining, anything. I know pretty much all the resources on campus. I know a lot of people on campus. I've worked with Burnett House with programming. I've worked on the SOC. I've worked on the BSG. I've worked with the A team. I know how to get things done on this college campus, and I want to help student groups get those things done. I've already begun to do some of the work that I promised to do, and I want to continue to do it. I want to build that online resource. I've already begun it, and vote for me so that I can continue my work for you.
Thank you both.